I know things didn't end well last time I brought you into this, but what I'm going to do could be very dangerous, and I'll need all the help I can get. So, what do you guys say?
Some danger, maybe a little bit of drinking, and a whole lot of money in the end. I'm in.
No.
Why not?
Because I said I would give him another chance to make things right, not to do this.
Astrid, we'd finally get out of this stinkhole. See the world and all of its liquor.
That is the last thing you need.
We probably won't leave the campus for a few weeks, but if we accomplish our mission, Walter's slate will be cleared, and you'll have enough money and recognition to not have to fight for everything anymore.
Sounds like a good deal if you ask me.
Hidden behind her glare, Eli could see the wheels turning as Astrid thought over his invitation.
Fine.
Thank you.
On one condition. No one is kept in the dark about anything.
I promise. So what about you, Scar?
As long as you never call me that again, I'm in.
Ooh la! This is going to be fun.
The lights flickered as beams creaked and the wind battered the tavern.
So you are looking for, what did you call it?
A scroll wheel.
Across the worn, smooth table sat a thin man, twirling his waxed twig of a mustache in the shadow of his large brimmed hat.
What kind of scroll wheel are you looking for?
A simple one. Something that looks like this.
Drawing a folded parchment from her pocket, Scarlet slid a sketch of a long cylinder across the table. Ancient runes and symbols ran in neatly organized columns along the shaft. They had discovered this drawing several weeks ago in the Cotton Journal, along with notes and riddles referring to a ring of life.
Ha! You call that simple? My friend, that is anything but simple.
One of your contacts told us you were in possession of something similar to this.
They did? I wish I could say that was true. But if I had something as beautiful as that, I would only part with it for...
The clinking of coins cut his sentence short. Scarlet shoved the small sack of coins over, letting a few coins slip free.
Authentic gold straight from the treasury.
Oh, well, now that you mention it, I do have it.
Reaching for the bag, Claude jumped back in shock as silver steel flashed across the air and dug itself into the table.
You don't get to touch those until you show us the scroll wheel.
Very well.
Stomping through the back door, two burly men lugged a large box, slamming it on the floor by the thin, waxy man. Removing one of the many rings that adorned his fingers, he pressed its diamond face into a cutout in the front of the box, twisting it and releasing the latch. Pulling the large mechanical lid back, several lock boxes filled the container. Slipping another ring off, Claude opened a large box and slid out this long stone cylinder.
Here we are, minted in 567. As you can see, it is authenticated by the one and only cotton seal.
The greenish stone sparkled in the candlelight.
That would be the one.
Good. You can take a closer look.
Taking the cylinder, Eli ran his fingers across the columns of carved ruins. Some were simple letters in High Tulanis, others were hieroglyphics of the strangest variety.
Does it meet your satisfaction?
Passing it to Scarlet, she turned it over in her hands before removing her knife that was pinning the sack of gold to the table.
It does.
Swiping up the bag, Claude twiddled his fingers in it, relishing in the sound of rattling coins.
Well, it was a pleasure doing business, but I'll be taking my artifact back.
Shifting in his seat, Eli felt cold, hard metal press against his neck. Towering over Scarlet was Rayer's other goon.
You double-crossing scum.
What did you expect? I'm a businessman. I do what gains me the most profit.
So that's how you got rich. You entice people to buy your artifacts, then rob them, and then take everything for yourself.
Business is business. Now I'll be having my property back. And don't try anything.
Outstretching her hand, Scarlet dropped the heavy cylinder into the man's thick hands. Pushing back his chair, Rayer dusted off his coat and replaced the cylinder in his lockbox, sealing it.
I'll be leaving now. I don't like staying for what comes next. Men, you know what to do.
Heaving up the large box, Rayer limped his way to the door, only to have it come smashing open, throwing him to the floor.
Oh, we fly in the sky.
Watch where you're going, you drunk buffoon!
Sorry, mate.
Ah! Look what you've done! You've gotten my pristine silk all gone fist wet!
Oh, my apologies, monsieur.
Lazily grabbing the cuff of her sleeve, Astrid vigorously rubbed the wet patch on his vest. Swatting her hands away, Claude recoiled in disgust, shivering at Astrid's touch.
What is wrong with you? You do not touch the majestic Cloud Raya!
Oh, my apologies, your majesticness.
Stumbling back, Astrid bumped into a table and lurched forward, dousing the shriveling man in what was left of her drink.
Didn't see that there.
You disgusting bug! Ah!
Recoiling as cold liquids drenched into his silk clothes, Claude jumped across the table, letting the lockbox slip from his hands. Whipping off his hat, he desperately tried to wring out the alcohol Walter dumped on his head.
Ah! Not my hat! Not my baby!
Your baby?
What in the blessed land is wrong with them?
I have no idea.
Hey, you two.
You talking to me?
Yeah, you drunk idiots. Get out of here. We're trying to do business.
Tripping over every step, Astrid threw herself at the man, draping her arms around his neck.
Oh, my, you have beautiful eyes.
The man scrunched his nose as the strong smell of liquor flooded his system.
Get off me.
Shoving her off, Astrid shuffled a few steps before whipping her glass mug into the man's head.
What the hell?
His sentence was cut short as the man's skull was crushed under the weight of Rayer's discarded lockbox.
Ah! You monster! That box is worth more than your life! Gods!
5 shaggy men, all armed with knives, burst into the room from every door, window, and chimney.
You had a guy in the chimney?
Get that!
I hate his voice. Who's first?
Eli, get the box!
Diving across the table, Eli grabbed the box and swung into the nearest goon. Flicking the discarded gun off the floor, Scarlet unloaded several rounds into the charging men.
Scarlet!
They're just flesh wounds.
Chairs flew across the room, knocking back 2 more of the goons that were rushing for Astrid.
I had it, Walter.
Yeah, sure you did.
All lay groaning in anguish on the splintered and shattered glass-covered floor.
Well, that was easy.
Right on cue, 10 more men flooded into the room. This time they had guns.
Get them.
Kicking over the table, Walter dragged Astrid into cover. Jumping behind an overturned table, Eli fumbled in his belt for the small pistol Professor Jones had given him. Scarlet dove for cover as she unloaded her last few rounds into the crowd of men.
You just had to say something.
I'm sorry. I didn't know he had more men.
Ducking out from cover, Eli shot in the general direction of the attackers.
You actually have to aim.
You shoot then.
Tossing the gun to Scarlet, she spun around and downed 2 men. Bullets lodged into the table, sending splinters flying into the air.
We need to get out of here.
I'm well aware of that.
Searching around the room, Eli spotted a window to their left. Finding Astrid in the mess of bullets, Eli signaled for them to head for the door.
On 3, we go through the window.
Got it. Walter, grab the rings.
The what?
The rings. Rayer's rings.
Got it.
All right, let's go.
On 3. 1, 2, 3.
Dashing from cover, they sprinted across the room. Chucking the heavy lockbox, it smashed into the window, filling the air with glass. Grabbing onto one another, they followed the case out the window, falling to the grass below. Rolling away from the light of the window, they scrambled to their feet, tucking themselves into the shadows of the alley. Racing through the back roads of the town, they were blinded by the sudden burst of light.
Get in!
Shielding his eyes, Eli could make out the rough shape of the professor, standing behind a cab door. Hurriedly, they got into the buggy, tossing the large case in the back seat.
Where are the Finleys?
Right there!
Springing forth from a corner, they sprinted towards the car.
They're coming!
What did she say? I can't hear over this infernal engine.
Flinging the door open, Astrid and Walter slid into the rear seat, slamming the door behind them.
Drive!
Yes, give me a moment.
We don't have one. They're right behind us.
Who?
Them.
Charging around the same bend, several angry men charged at the car. One cocked and aimed his shotgun right at Jones.
Get down!
Scarlet yanked Jones down as the glass shattered, ripped apart by the slug.
I'll drive, old man!
Climbing over Jones, she shoved him out of the driver's seat, took hold of the shifter, cranked it back, and sent the car accelerating away from the pursuing goon. Flying down alleyway and street alike, zigzagging down the narrow streets, trying to avoid the pedestrians who were trying to enjoy their evening.
Miss Defoe, I would recommend slowing down.
Carol, look out!
Glittering snow-covered hills rolled by as the train rumbled along the tracks. The evergreens rose up in majestic glory, doused in the early morning sun. Dashes of brown muddled in the pristine white landscape as Mountain Elk raced along with the rumbling machine. Wrapped in the warmth of his wool coat, Eli gazed upon the changing landscape, drifting off in thought about the moments and discoveries that led to this fateful train ride. After gathering his friends together, Eli had spent the last 2 months uncovering the riddles and clues of the Cotton Journal, spending weeks of sleepless nights, poring over every word that had ever been written. Enthusiasm had been high on that first day, which slowly drew into another, then another, until a week had passed by with little progress.
We've been looking at these stupid books for hours and have gotten nowhere.
That is after the process.
Well, I hate it.
Why? It's like a giant puzzle you have to solve.
Finley doesn't solve things. He punches them.
Or drinks until he forgets about it.
Natalia's horrified face was the most amusing thing Eli had ever seen. That was the last amusing thing that had happened for a while. After poring over the nonsensical scribbling and drawings of the Cotton Journal, Astrid had had an idea that would unlock the mysteries of the journal.
What if we use the key?
How would we do that?
Ask it a question, I guess.
I'm not sure it works like that.
Just try it.
Clenching the key close to his chest, Eli cleared his mind, letting one simple question fill the void. How do we find the next piece of the relic? Howling wind tore through the room, ripping books from the shelves, boards from the floor, leaving him and the journal standing in the empty void of churning white clouds and thunder. Creaking open, the pages of the journal rustled back and forth before settling on a single page. Scribbled on one side were the words, "To gain eternal life, you must look to the past." On the other page, a drawing of the scroll wheel. Thunder struck through the void, opening a window into the world. Peering through, soaring granite mountains capped in white could be seen. Tucked between two peaks was a massive walled structure with an eagle and star stamped into its door. Snapping closed in a burst of light, the world surrounded him in a rush, throwing him from his feet, crashing to the floor.
Eli, are you all right?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Glinting horns sent light glittering around the room. Standing proud on the desk Eli had been thrown away from was the goat from the Vault of Secrets.
What's the goat about?
His name is Rabbi, and he is the protector of the journal. But I see Mr. McCain has uncovered something.
I have.
Describing the mountains and the structure he had seen, Jones had recognized it as the monastery of Mount Errol, the home of the half-height monks. They are a religious group dedicated to tracking and protecting the events of history. Jones had also recognized the scroll wheel as something Eli's parents had been looking for, and that it was now in the hands of a man named Cloud Rayer. Guided by a location and a clue, Eli set off to find the pieces he needed to progress in his expedition of revenge. After their narrow escape from Rayer and his men, they found themselves packed comfortably into their own private train car, climbing their way toward the distant village of Kaminsk, then onto the monastery.
Tea?
Thanks.
Warmth flooded through his fingertips as he laced his fingers around the fragile cup. Tangy warmth embraced him as the lemony liquid slipped down his throat. The train car was of modest size, with elegant chairs and decorations filling the space. A single shelf of books was tucked in the corner, with a slumped-over professor reading peacefully. Across the way, Walter and Scarlet were locked in a sweat-dripping arm-wrestling match. Bulging veins snaked their way up Scarlet's arm and protruded from her forehead as she threw all her weight against Walter. Though he looked relaxed at glance, bored even, sweat trickled down Walter's temples in a steady stream. Sighing deeply, Walter laid all his weight in his push, crashing Scarlet's arm to the table.
Dang it! I thought I had you.
Sure you did.
After a long stream of jousts and a handful of threats, Scarlet had agreed to face Walter in tests of skill, which they would do over the expedition. Current standing was 1-1. Scarlet had blown Walter away in a knife-throwing contest, to the annoyance of the professor.
Do you think she ever stood a chance?
Huh?
Shaking her eyes away from the rolling landscape, Astrid snuggled into the blanket she had draped around her shoulders.
Scarlet, do you think she could ever best Walter in a test of strength?
No, she'd have to trick him to win.
Light shifted in through the passing trees, bouncing off the creamy white horns of Rabbi. The strange goat had been of little help since they left the capital. All it did was follow whoever had the journal or sat staring at it for hours on end. Walter had protested against bringing the goat, but Jones had said the goat would come whether they brought him or not, peering out over the landscape that stretched and rolled out before him. Eli took in all that had happened. He'd come to the capital alone to study archaeology and exploration, only to find the most precious item in the realm waiting for him. Now he was set out to the far north, surrounded by people he called friends, to find the relic that could mend the nation of all its afflictions. Dark shadows filled the car as the mountain enveloped the train momentarily. In seconds, they burst forth from the mountainside into the midday light. Stretching out beneath the track was a deep valley with trees running up the mountain face. At the heart of the valley was the dark splotch of Kaminsk, tethered to a twisting, wide, and gentle river. Kaminsk was no grand village, but it served as the southern entrance to the Pass of the Crystal Cliffs and the center of trade in northern Toulon. Twisting their way down the mountainside, the train rolled to a grinding stop. The station paled in comparison to that of the capital. Kreminsky Station had 3 simple platforms, whereas the capital had nearly 50. The train rocked to its final resting place. Gathering up their things, the group headed for the platform.
You won't have to worry about grabbing all your things. Someone will bring them to our rooms.
Where are we staying again?
At the end of the Crystal Pass, where we will meet up with our guide. Then tomorrow, we will make the long trek up to the monastery.
Making their way from the platform, Eli took in the stunning beauty of the valley, with its high tree-covered walls, glistening powdery snow of early winter. The thick gray stone buildings, cornered by deep black stone columns, lined the streets. Wreaths and garland hung from roof to roof, twisted with ribbon. White puffs of smoke rose high into the sky, mixing with the clouds and golden beams of sunlight. Meandering through the streets, they were greeted on every corner by a wave and a warm welcome. Traders lined the streets, selling their wares of furs, dried goods, and warm coats. The few winter birds that remained this far north sang their song, perched in the garland above the street.
Here we are.
Set back from the street, the inn rose up high above the surrounding buildings. Branches of leafless trees, circled by bare flower beds, crawled up the sides of buildings, framing in the small courtyard. Thick air tinged with sizzling meat and ale berated them as they slipped into the tavern.
Take a seat. I'll go check in with the innkeeper and find our guide.
Disappearing into the crowd of patrons, Jones left the ragtag group standing at the door.
I don't know about you, but I'm starving.
You're always starving.
Not always. Only most of the time.
Rolling her eyes, Astrid pressed on into the crowd, leading them past a roaring fire to a table tucked into the far corner. Shuffling back through the crowd, Jones joined them once more, trailed by a short, stocky man with thick black curls rolled tightly around his head. Thin wisps of finely oiled hair shot out in opposing directions from under his nose, coming to sharp, needle-like points. Thick clouds of black sat above his sunken golden eyes.
I would like you all to meet Tara Sasuli. He will be our guide for tomorrow's journey up the mountain.
It's a pleasure to meet you.
He doesn't say much. Now let's get some food. I'm starving.
Over a steaming hot meal, Jones and Terrace hashed out the details of their climb. It was decided that they would leave at first light. Finishing their plans, Jones sent them off to their rooms to get some rest. Howling wind blew away the morning air and hammered in Eli's ears as sheets of snow whipped across the mountain face. Banks of snow piled high along the rock wall, rendering the path almost invisible.
How far up the mountain is the monastery?
The harsh wind nearly blew Astrid's words away.
Not far now. Are you sure? Not far, not far.
I hope you're right.
I think Jones made the right choice to stay behind.
When the storm had ripped through the valley, Jones quickly made it known he would not be making the climb. The rest had faced the climb with excitement. Now, as the wind bit through the wool layers, freezing their entire nervous system, they regretted their choice. Each step felt as if their muscles were ripping away from the very bone and crumbling into shards of frozen stone. Throwing himself to the left, Eli rammed into the rough wall of the mountain as snow and debris crashed down around them. Waves of snow rushed over the cliff face, crashing into the valley below. No! Rabbi rushed to the cliff edge, furiously stomping his hooves in panicked bounces. Sprinting to the panicked goat, Eli stared over the edge.
Astrid!
Astrid clung desperately to a single stone, dangling over certain doom. The cliff face cut in sharply, leaving a drop down to the forest below. Throwing himself to the dirt, Eli shot out his hand. His fingers grazed against her hand but couldn't reach her.
Don't let go. Try grabbing my hand.
Astrid swung her other hand over her head, just grazing his fingertips.
Walter!
Bursting forth from the snow like a mighty whale erupts from the water, Walter shook off the snow and hurried to Eli's side. Swinging down, Walter gripped the collar of Astrid's coat and flung her up in a flurry of wool and leather. Clutching her in his arms, Eli pushed back with his feet, sending them rolling away from the edge. Swinging his legs out, Walter caught the lip of the cliff and hoisted himself back onto the path. Squeezing her closer, Eli slowed his own breathing. Slowly the shivers stopped, and her breaths came in even gasps. Burying her face in the wool of his coat, they sat there blocking out the howling wind and the biting cold.
Are you guys alright?
Gently releasing his arm from around Astrid, he sat back, dusting off his dirt-riddled, snow-covered coat as Astrid drew her sleeve across her face, wiping the sweat from her forehead.
Here, take this.
Bending to one knee, Scarlet offered Astrid her canteen. Swiping it from her hand, Astrid pressed it to her lips, drinking deeply. Rabbi nestled next to her, lying his head across her legs.
The storm's getting worse. We need to find shelter.
No need. We're here.
Raising his eyes, Eli took in the glimpses of two stacked stone pillars, etched with the mark of the four-winged eagle. Stairs stretched out, winding their way into the hills, leading to the foot of large black gates.
Go quickly. I go no further.
Why?
I lead to gate. No further.
Pulling Astrid to her feet, they passed through the two pillars and marched their way up the steps. Sliding and scrambling up the stairs, the tower building rose up before them. 2 towers flanked the gate, orange light shimmering from the windows. High walls stretched out in both directions, closing in the valley. Slipping up the last few steps, Walter put all his weight into the door, cracking it open. Flame light flickered from the sconces that cast their weak light around the shimmering black marble walls. Sprawling, glinting cracks of gold creeped their way through stone, like vines on a tree. 3 doors sat carved from the dark marble, one straight ahead, one to the right, and one to the left.
Well, hello there, weary travelers.
The hairs on Eli's neck shot up at the echoing voice. Silver light flashed through the room as Walter and Scarlet drew their knives.
Oh, you won't be needing those. I will not harm you.
Who are you?
Oh, just an old man guiding others in his life.
White light flooded through the room from Eli's flashlight, casting its light on the dark passages.
I don't like this.
Why do you dislike my home?
Wheeling around, Walter surged forward, grasping the source of the voice and slamming it into the wall. Pinned behind Walter's thick hands was a hunched 4-foot-tall man, dressed in a coarse black tunic tied close by a brown cord. Wisps of cloudy hair shot off in all directions from his shiny dome head. Thin white whiskers shadowed his deep-set eyes. A thick rope-like beard dangled from his chin.
Who are you?
Who am I? Who are you?
You first.
Why? You are strangers here, and your friend is currently pinning me to my own wall.
He has a point. Let him go.
Dropping like a sack of potatoes, the elderly man landed without a buckle, brushing off Walter's hold like it was nothing. He simply readjusted his grip on his cane. His deep-set eyes stared inquisitively at them. His eyes were as dark as the abyss, void of all light. It felt like it pierced your very flesh, breaking away the layers and peering into your soul.
I'm Eli McCain. This is Astrid and Walter Finley, and that's Scarlet Defoe.
Oh, it is. Oh, I know you.
You do?
Yes, indeed. I am Saga Misaki. I am the caretaker of Mount Errol.
It's a pleasure to meet you.
We'll see about that. Now, what brings you up this way?
We're looking for something.
Yes, you are. You are looking for the missing piece of the star relic.
How did you know that?
How blind the seeing are. It's obvious that that is what you seek. It's as obvious as a fish in the desert. It's as obvious as if it were written in the stars. It's as obvious.
We get it. It's obvious.
Feisty. Come. You all must be freezing and hungry.
Saga hobbled through one of the doors. Sharing a quick glance, they all shrugged their shoulders and headed in after the waddling man. Cream stucco-lined halls, floored by simple black tile and decorated with art depicting the ages past, led to an open hall where brown-cloaked men only 3 to 4 feet tall shuffled all around, going here and there.
What is this place?
It is the House of Keeping. We are the holders of ancient myths, legends, stories, and history of the land.
Great. A bunch of short, nerdy whack jobs.
We are much more than that. Now come in. Come get warm.
Guiding them through one of the many arched doors lining the wall, a great expanse of benches and tables stretched out before them, lit by a roaring fire, taking up the center of the hall. More monks milled about the room.
Here, sit. Unburden yourselves. I will bring you food.
Scuttling away through a small door, the crazy monk returned with a wide tray, carrying several steaming bowls of soup. Dropping their gear, they each took a bowl and gathered around the blazing fire.
How do you know our mission?
Because it's all...
Don't say it's obvious.
The goat gave it away.
How did the goat give it away?
I know the goat. He is Rabbi, protector of the Cotton Journal.
The shaggy goat perked up hearing its name. Clopping across the stone, it nestled up to the monk's side.
You know each other?
Yes, we met many decades ago. I haven't seen him since Joseph Cotton's funeral.
You were alive when Cotton died?
I was, though I was much younger at the time. But that is a different topic for another time. Now, you have a question for me, Mr. McCain.
I did. I was wondering if you knew what this went to.
Pulling the cool stone cylinder from his pouch, Eli handed it over to the elderly man.
Oh, the scroll wheel, often used for many things. Sometimes a key, maybe a hidden message. It depends on the maker.
We believe it was made to locate a piece of the star relic.
Interesting. Well, if you're so sure, why ask me?
Because we want to be certain it's here.
It's here. It's not here. Why be certain? Asking me when you have the tools to be certain yourselves.
Will you at least help us figure out what the scroll wheel does?
No.
Why not?
Because I don't feel like it.
Seriously?
It is not my place. If the goat is with you, then you have everything you need to find what you are looking for.
Hopping down from his seat, he scurried away into the hall.
That man is weird.
Everything's been weird since I got to the university.
You can say that again. So what do we do now?
Eat, check the book again. I found a few more pages about this place in the journal, so I'll take a look at those. In the meantime, why don't you guys have a look around?
Sure.
We'll bring the goat, see if he sniffs anything out.
Do we have to bring him?
Yes. Now, let's go see what this place is like.
I'll stay here.
As expected.
Tugging the knit hat from her head, Scarlet draped it across her pack before marching off into the halls of the monastery. Clopping hooves and earth-rattling steps followed her. Walter had come to despise Rabbi, yet no one knew why. Not that she cared much. Scarlet hadn't had much to care about in the last year. Just listening to the promptings of her father, doing what he suggested to keep him happy. None of that mattered at the moment. What mattered was finding the ring.
Out for a walk?
Slipping from the shadows like a snake, the hunched man kept in tow with Scarlet's confident stride.
I'm just looking around.
Ah, yeah. Always searching for something, you Defoes are. Nasty business it is.
What did you say?
Oh, just that never-ending longing is a nasty business. Drives a man insane from time to time.
The old man's sunken eyes, like wells of time and space, tore through her soul, searching her up and down. As their eyes stayed locked together, she felt her walls crumble, everything she was falling away into those endless eyes. She could do nothing to break his hold. Blinking his wrinkly eyelids, the trance was shattered.
I guess I shouldn't have hoped for much.
Twirling his cane in his slender fingers, he turned away, shuffling off into the shadows. Sweat dripped from her skin as sparks shot up her nerves, rattling her whole body.
What was that about?
It was nothing.
Taking hold of her breath, Scarlet slowed her racing mind, letting it flow like waves crashing on the beach.
Let's keep looking.
Silence echoed down the halls as they paced along the corridors. Each step felt muffled, as if by some strange power. A mural of the ancient chief, father to Denali, had been carved out of the wall ending the hallway. Carved from the mountain's face and overlaid with glass shards, giving the mural life. Trim, etched with ruins and hieroglyphics, framed in the ancient chief. Brushing her fingers along the indented symbols, something about them felt familiar, like she had seen them before.
I've seen these before.
Running her fingers along the symbol, she noticed some were carved deeper into the stone, while others protrude from the stone.
The scroll wheel. Walter, go back and get the others.
Sure thing.
No need.
Eli raced up the hall with Astrid in tow and the scroll in hand.
You found it!
I'm not sure what it is, but yes.
I checked the book and found out what the scroll wheel is for. It's a key that goes to this.
To a piece of art?
No! To a door, and this is the key!
Here, I'll show you.
Twisting the copper caps in opposing directions, several runes shot out from the cylinder. Matching the scroll to one end of the etched trim, Eli cautiously rolled the wheel against the wall. Each hole in the wall slid effortlessly together with the protrusions of the wheel. Reaching the final rune, Eli shoved it into place. Dust flooded the air. Two cracks ran in parallel, meeting a third running horizontally. Firmly placing his palms on the wall, Walter shoved against the stone. Tension rippled through his arms. Jagged stone bounced the dim light of the hallway deep into the gaping cavern before them.
Looks like you were right.
Eli's torch flickered to life, casting its pale light down the shadowed passage. A blue hue tinged the glassy rock.
What did it say to do after you found the door?
Enter the passage of stars and face the roaring beast, and in its heart you shall find your keep.
Can't wait to find out what the roaring beast is.
It's probably nothing.
Let's hope so.
Crossing the threshold, Eli was enveloped by crystal glass. Peering into the shimmering stone, it seemed like a bright night sky filled with thousands of stars scattered about in beautiful disorder. The twinkle and flicker of the stone drew him down the descending passage. Every step felt as if he walked among the heavens, moving faster and further from the earth, going to the edge of existence. Streaks of blues, reds, and orange and magenta whizzed past as the sparkles of light swirled around the crystal walls. All thought of time or danger passed from their mind, enveloped in the spiral of stars and color that swirled all around them.
Guys, look!
Several steps in front of them, 3 gashes tore away the smooth crystal in harsh, jagged lines.
What are those?
There's more up ahead. Look.
Tentatively placing one foot in front of the other, they made their way closer to a patch of stone that had been slashed away. Pebbles of starlight stone lay crushed and scattered across the floor.
I don't like this.
Me neither.
Something's off.
I think whatever made those marks is the beast the book was talking about.
I didn't think it meant a literal beast.
The passage opens up over here.
Draw your knives. We might need them.
Clutching it with clammy hands and twitching fingers, Eli drew it from the sheath strapped to his calf, letting its silver blade glint in the swirling array of colors shining forth from the cave. Creeping their way forward, the passage widened into a large open space. The clear star crystal faded into black glinting stone, broken up by small specks of starstone. Gashes and cracks lined the dimly lit walls, and at the far end a door stood tall and proud, embedded into the stone. A door with the 4-pointed star carved into the lintel. Blood drained from his face as the memory flooded back to him. The pungent smell of gunsmoke, the bitter taste of blood floating across the air. A shattered handle lay tossed aside on the floor. His lungs collapsed as the weight of where they were fell crushing him to the floor. The screams filled his ears. The ringing roar of gunshot flooded into his mind.
Eli, are you okay?
He couldn't utter a word. His legs turned to jelly as he collapsed to his knees. Sweat poured down his face. His lips trembled.
Eli, what is it?
It can't be. It can't be. No, it can't be.
Eli, it can't be what? Walt, do you know what's happening?
Why would I know?
Clopping his way to Eli's side, the thin slits of Robbie's eyes pierced Eli's soul. They were filled with pity and understanding.
Wait, didn't Eli say his parents died in a cave?
He did.
This could be
Where they died.
Slipping her arm under his, Astrid drew Eli in closer, offering what little comfort she could. Gazing upon the door, Eli felt his heart shatter into 1,000 pieces. Golden flecks glinted in the shadows of the door. He took in their detail as they grew closer. They weren't like the other twinkling stone that filled the cavern. They had life and were filled with anger. White fur blotted out the black shadows as large claws surged forward, slashing at all in its way.
Look out!
Frozen in horror, Eli watched as the snarling bear leapt across the cavern. Walter dove across to Astrid, knocking her against the wall, rendering her unconscious. Sharp pain shot through his head as he struck the stone floor. Scrambling to his feet, Eli stood shocked, watching Walter hold back the force of the raging bear. Shoving it away, he struck out with his knife, catching it in the side. Lurching it in pain, it swung its massive paws, slashing its knife-sharp claws across Walter's arm, flinging him into the rough wall. Shrugging off the cut, the bear shifted its focus to the unconscious form of Astrid lying limp on the floor. Springing into action, Eli dashed forward, driving his knife into the beast's side and dragging it along its course further. Dropping to his knees, dodging the enraged slash of the beast's deadly claws. Thrusting up, he dug his knife deep into its exposed armpit. Twisting away from the pain and swinging wildly, the beast's claws slashed Eli's legs, sending searing pain, shooting it up as they were swiped from under him. Dragging himself across the floor, Eli watched with blurred vision as the beast wriggled in pain. Rolling to its side, it dragged itself to its feet, rage rippling through its thick fur. Tremors shook the ground as it stomped, closer and closer. Searching frantically for his knife, Eli backed towards the wall. He was trapped. Slipping on the slick stone, the bear crashed to the floor, Clutching her side, Scarlet stood leaning against the cave entrance, with a small dark gun gripped in her steady hands.
That should do it.
Clutching the rough stone, Eli hoisted himself to his feet. Stumbling against the wall, Eli dragged himself across the stone floor, limping closer to the door. He'd seen them once before, and he hated them. Unslinging his pack, Eli retrieved the leather journal and began flipping through page after page until the lifelike scratch of the door flashed before him. Scribbled under the door were the simple words, "Truth shall open the gates to life." Tossing the book aside, Eli staggered towards the room he dreaded to see. Smooth, perfectly cut pillars rose up to support a pointed roof with the star housed under its eave. A circle sat latching the two doors of plain stone closed. Twisting his finger around the slender shaft of the key, he snapped the cord holding it around his neck, sliding it through the narrow gap. Swinging in, the doors revealed a hollow room of plain black, bleak stone. There was nothing. No pillar, no box, no ring. Just cold black stone.
No, this can't be.
Eli, Walter's bleeding out. He needs medical attention.
No.
Eli, Walter needs help. We have to go.
Rushing into the cramped room, Eli kicked over every stone, checked every crack and crevice, yet there was nothing.
No. After all this.
Eli, grab the ring and let's move.
Don't you get it? There's nothing here. No ring, no map, no clues. Just an empty room. My parents didn't even die protecting anything. They died in a hole.
Eli, it doesn't matter right now. Walter...
Scarlet's head flung back as a shard of rock sliced across her cheek.
Don't you ever say my parents' death doesn't matter.
You'll pay for that.
What? I cut your pretty little face?
Springing across the open space, Scarlet slammed her shoulder into Eli's chest, throwing him against the wall. Collapsing into a hacking heap on the floor, Eli grasped a nearby rock and sent it hurling into Scarlet's leg. Lunging for her throat, he tackled her to the ground, sending them reeling across the floor, slamming into the rough stone. Scarlet jabbed her leg into his stomach, throwing him off. Chest heaving, Scarlet scrambled to her feet. Drawing his knife, Eli slashed out, catching Scarlet in the arm. Whipping her blade out, the dim light reflected as she swung it, nicking Eli just above the eye. Warm blood poured into his eyes, blurring his vision. Panting and bleeding, they circled each other, waiting to strike. Feigning left and right, they searched for a falter, a gap in their defenses. Feigning left, then jabbing right, Eli sprung at Scarlet. Rock horns smashed into them, knocking them both to the ground. Rabbi's hoofs dug deep into Eli's chest, pinning him.
Get off me!
Eli, enough!
It's her fault!
My fault? How dare...
Shut it, both of you! I don't care who started it! We shouldn't be trying to kill each other!
Panting heavily, Eli set his head back and breathed deeply before letting his knife slip from his grasp. Tossing her blade into the shadows, Scarlet fell to her knees, rubbing away the stream of blood trickling down her face.
I'd have to say you two do not disappoint.
How long have you been standing there?
Long enough to know that you two are not worthy of this gift.
Who are you to decide that?
I am its protector, and I say you are not worthy.
Shuffling across the room, the hunched man bent down and began tending to Walter's wounds. Rabbi eyed Eli as he sat back, releasing him. Astrid rushed to her brother's side to aid the old man in tending to him.
But we need it. You don't understand what's at stake.
I know perfectly well what's at stake. You think I'm blind to what happens in the world because I live up here in the mountains? Ha! The way of the young. I see clearer than most.
His dark eyes snapped to Scarlet. Shifting nervously, she dropped her eyes to the floor.
I say neither of you are worthy, but there's one I will give it to, and to one alone.
Striking his cane against the floor, it shattered into a million pieces. Lying in the splinters of the shattered cane, a small ring glinted golden in the dim light. It was a simple band of gold, with an eagle's claw clutching a single star stone gem. Sweeping it up in his slender fingers, Saga grasped the muscular hand of Walter, placing the ring onto his finger.
What happened?
Walt! It's okay! You're all right!
The bear.
The bear is sleeping. and you are lucky to be alive.
You sent us into a death trap.
I prefer to call it a test.
Wait.
Raising his hand, Walter's pupils expanded to the point of surpassing his eyes.
What the heck is that?
That, my friend, is a second chance.
Why did you give it to him?
Because the one who wishes to destroy his life needs more time to learn that it is a gift. And you, Walter Finley, have tried to throw your life away time and time again.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
I see now why you have such a challenging relationship with your brother.
Striking Walter across the head, Saga hobbled back in the direction of the Starlight Passage.
What was that for?
To get the message into your thick head. You are the protector of that ring, so don't lose it, because it is the only reason you are alive at this moment. Now get up, you mongrels. I want you out of here.
The howling winds had blown the last clouds out of the valley, leaving it in the high shadows of the falling sun. Silence surrounded them, like the storm that had whirled in their ears as they climbed the mountain. Astrid, bruised and aching, stuck to Walter's side, rushing to his aid any time he faltered. His bleeding had stopped, stemmed by the preservation of the ring, but his face was scarred by the deep gashes left by the bear, blinding him in his right eye. Limping over rock and stone, Scarlet kept her distance, leading them down the mountain. She hadn't said a word since they'd climbed out of the cave. Neither had Eli, and he for sure wasn't going to be the one to break that silence.
What are you looking at? Huh?
Rabbi's never faltering gaze had been upon him since the cave. It made Eli shift the straps of his pack or the placement of his steps. He didn't like it, and it unnerved him. Yet Rabbi never stopped staring, even when they reached the inn to find Professor Jones.
Ah, you're back. Is she all right?
Brushing past, Scarlet marched through the empty room and disappeared up the stairs. Taking in the scarred form of Walter and the rest of them, Jones' air of ease vanished in a blink.
What happened?
Guiding Walter to the stairs, Astrid glanced at Eli before following her brother up, leaving Eli and the professor alone.
Eli, what happened?
Eli's pack slipped from his shoulders, thudding dully on the floor. Slumping in a chair, Eli lay his head in his hand. He couldn't bring himself to speak, couldn't utter the horror he almost committed. Several months ago, he'd asked himself how far he would go to get revenge for his parents. He now had his answer.